So my name's Professor Justin Sheffield from the University of Southampton in the UK.
And could you tell us a bit about the Prince Sultan Bin Abdulaziz International Prize for Water and its importance?
Yes, so this was a prize that I was awarded, luckily a few years ago, with my late colleague, Professor Eric Wood from Princeton University. And as in the name, it's an international prize for water. And it's really important because it recognises how important water is, especially in the climate system. So really pleased to be awarded it, and it's actually provided a real opportunity to talk about water and its importance on a platform like at COP28.
Of course. And how can we see the worsening of the climate situation through hydrological events?
Well, we often think about climate change as rising temperatures and maybe extreme precipitation. But it's really through those hydrological extremes that we're actually seeing the worst of climate change, so flooding and droughts, and that's affecting many different sectors. So whether it's water resources, supply of water, energy production or food productions, that's where we're seeing the worst effects of climate change through water.
And we hear a lot about carbon footprints, but it's also very important to think about our water footprints. So what do companies and individuals potentially need to be doing to make sure that they are valuing water in the right way and making sure that their water footprint isn't so damaging?
That's right. So we often think about the carbon footprint, how much carbon we're using in our everyday activities, but we don't really think too much about the water we use, and that's often because water is very cheap. And one way to think about that is through the water footprint, a similar kind of concept to the carbon footprint. And we can think about that on an individual level, where we think about how much water we're using every day for sanitation, for washing, for drinking, for cooking and so on. And you can think about it at the kind of institutional or company level as well. How much water is the company using on its day-to-day basis, and how can that be more sustainable? So it's a really important concept that we need to think about in the same way that we think about our carbon footprint.
And when we're talking about sustainable development, the transition to renewable energy, how important is it to consider water?
Well, water is really important because it's vital, it's essential for energy production. So for example, nuclear power, and at COP28 there's discussions about how to increase our use of nuclear power to address the climate problem, but it's very dependent on water in terms of cooling those power plants. So we're not going to make that transition until we think about the water that's used for cooling. It's also very important in many parts of the world for hydropower. So hydropower produces electricity in many parts of the world, especially in least developed countries. So it's a really key part of their actual development, but it's also a key part of global transition to renewables as well.